This is AV Week, October 7th, 2011. Julie in her pajamas.
Ready.
AV Week.
Performing scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AV Week. AV Week. It's time again for AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of AV news and commentary. I'm your host, Tim Albright. With us today is Julie Jacobson. Julie is the co-founder of VH Publishing, as well as one of the editors at CEPro. Good afternoon, Julie.
Hello.
And also with her is Craig MacCormack. Craig is a senior writer with Commercial Integrator. Hello, Craig.
Hey, Tim. How's it going?
It is going well. This week, guys, a bit of sad news. I know it's more tech than AV, but we're still going to kind of go into it. Steve Jobs, the one of the founders of Apple, a very public face of Apple, lost his very long battle with cancer. I see Steve as a force in the AV industry only because he kind of gave us an inroads in the 60s and 70s when he started messing around with computers. You didn't have a whole lot of technology in the home. And so I think that it's important at least to step back for a second, acknowledge the passing of a great technologist. Julie, you've got some thoughts on Steve, not only as a technologist, but also as the face of Apple.
Well, I do, and my condolences to his family and the community. And you had said briefly, well, he's not really an AV guy. Well, to us, he really is an AV guy, and he really. We've been asking for the past month to our community, the integrator community, who has been the most disruptive force in home systems integration, audio, video, whole house communications, and control. And I mean, I challenge anyone to, put any to beat Steve Jobs in that force. Yeah. His with the iPad and with the Apple TV, which is not completely well baked yet, but he has been a huge disruptive factor in our industry.
Well, absolutely he has, because I mean, without him, we don't have a lot of the technology that we have. And you mentioned control. The iPad and the iPhone even is one of the least expensive and sexiest control interfaces that we have. Before those came out, you had to spend several thousands of dollars if you wanted a wireless control in your control system, whether that was in your house or in your office building.
You did, but I think even psychologically, I mean, there's a much bigger factor, and he really perfected the "it's okay, it's good enough" factor, whereas our industry has always touted the "it must be perfect" factor. And
now, some people may take issue with that.
Well, and a lot of companies, we've lost a lot of businesses because integrators, professional programmers have thought that they had to be perfect, and he perfected it's okay to be good enough and to have just the right amount of capabilities without having to go overboard, and that's what has been disruptive to our industry.
Craig, how do you see? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to mention that a couple months ago, I'd written a story that was based off a columnist piece that mentioned that the iPad was the winner in the commercial automation industry, and I talked to folks from Crestron and AMX and from Savant, and they all essentially agreed with that if you wanted to have an automation system that the iPad was kind of at the center of it. So I think that's kind of interesting that even competitors will agree that the things that Steve Jobs thought about were pretty damn good. So.
Well, and you look at his impact on the AV industry. The last two shows that the industry has had, both CEDIA and Infocom, you had products out there built around the form factor of two of his products. What is primarily a phone and a tablet, you had mounts, you had interfaces that mimicked and copied the interface of the iPhone and the iPad. One of the touch panels that was being shown at Infocom, the person who put together and made the graphical interface was an exact copy of an iPad. It even had the home button at the bottom, and it had the big giant, not giant, but the big good size icons on the page, and it flowed just like an iPad did.
Well, and again, I see, for our purposes, and for anything except for, I guess, I don't know what the iPad is really, really good at, but it does a lot of things pretty darn well. And if you see people mimicking this, it's because back in the day where you had to have a whole bunch of processing power and a lot of elegance in our industry for controlling boardrooms or homes or any of that, it was very expensive and took a lot of processing power. Whereas, today with the iPad and people copying that, even people that are, the Crestrons and the AMXs and the people that are known for control, are saying, it's good enough. Let's give people the ability to, communicate or watch TV or do other or control their motorized shades good enough without perfection. Powering up quickly and powering down elegantly. And I think that's been the beauty, and that's the legacy, and it will forever change the way we do control, for sure.
Absolutely will. All right, Craig, you wrote a piece for Commercial Integrator. Again, you're a senior writer for them, about the $180 billion opportunity as businesses shift to the cloud. Not to harp on Apple too much, but they released a product this week, shortly before Mr. Jobs passed away, touting their cloud. Amazon released last week the Fire, touting their cloud. You're saying that the business, the AV industry, has an opportunity, a $180 billion opportunity, to capitalize on this move to the cloud. How so?
Yeah, this was based largely on a CompTIA report that came out that they're the ones that had those findings. I didn't specifically say that myself, but that was based on their report. And it just, I think there are still enough people that are nervous about moving to the cloud that CompTIA believes that integrators can kind of help them move that way, and feel confident that being in the cloud is something that they don't have to be nervous about. They don't have to be scared about it. It's just as safe or unsafe. The one CompTIA told me as having just your own internal network. So it's not any worse or better necessarily. So I think there is a lot of opportunity there, and it sounds like it's going to grow pretty quickly in the next several years.
Now, is this something that we're going to have to convince businesses of, or do you think it's something where they're already going down this path anyway?
I think there is going to be some convincing that's necessary, but the suggestion in the story is that you don't have to move everything to the cloud right away, and that's just not for everybody. Some businesses are never going to be convinced that they should move everything there, and that's fine. But it's just it makes sense to at least give it a shot and see kind of what it's all about and how it works. And in addition to that, it saves on having your own internal IT staff. So,
Julie?
I think oh, sorry. No, I think there's a lot of confusion around the cloud, and for business processes as well as other opportunities, for example, cloud-based home control. And I think a lot of our industry is weary because they hear the cloud and they think, it's unsafe or it's,
spotty, or what happens if I lose my internet connection?
Exactly. But then, yet they all use Salesforce.com or other cloud-based operations software. And I think once they look at, well, what are they using for their own internal processes, that they think, that can have greater implications for what we're doing for our clients.
Yeah, I think maybe they don't always realize that they are using it already, and
exactly.
The fact that they're using it and nothing's happening to them should kind of be evidence enough that it is okay. But I think it still makes sense to at least maybe dip your toe into a little bit if you're a little bit scared. But it sounds like there's obviously quite a bit of opportunity with $180 billion projection here.
Well, yeah, and you can also start moving this into people's houses. I mean, there are a number of people that I know. I mean, I've got a small server, by small I mean under a terabyte. But there are friends of mine that have several terabytes because they've got movies and they have their music and pictures and things of that nature worth of storage physically in their house. So this is something that, unless I'm wrong, and you guys can correct me, you can start moving this into the residential area where you say, you know what, you've already got Netflix, which is a cloud-based service. You've got Pandora or Spotify, which is a cloud-based service. Why wouldn't they move their storage then, just like businesses, to the cloud? And this $180 billion may actually be more.
Well, boy, you don't want to get me started. I've got
Yes,
a whole I got a whole presentation on cloud-based stuff coming up at the CEPro Live later this month. But I mean, obviously the answer is to duplicate. I mean, you want to have all your content local and in the cloud and on a NAS and everywhere so you don't lose it. But it becomes interesting when then you can synchronize that content so you can watch it while you're at a hotel or your lake house, which we all have. So then you start seeing the possibilities of shared and synchronized content. And when you look at a professional integration and you look at how programming is done in the house for home control and for audio-video management, when you start putting that programming capability in the cloud, then you see where all the technicians within a company can be synchronized. So one of the big problems currently is that I might be the guy assigned to the Smith house, and I go to program something, and then my colleague might want to go tweak something in the system, yet we're on different computers and different systems and on different software, on different builds, and we're not all synchronized. And so that's when it becomes really interesting to be able to use the cloud within a company that is trying to service its clients, both residential and commercial, and to be able to make sure every technician in the company is on the same page. And I think that's the most exciting thing about cloud-based services.
So you're leaning more towards the business end than you would the guy down the block putting all of his stuff in the cloud.
Oh no, both.
Both, okay.
I'm just trying to also give the business side of it, but yes, also in the cloud. And shoot, I just forgot the name of the company where I almost subscribed, but then I forgot, and it's like $60 period for online backup of
Carbonite?
Yeah. Yes.
Carbonite. Yeah, I actually don't subscribe to them, but I do like the concept of it quite a bit. So
of everything. I guess the small print is that for any file over 4 megs, you have to. It can't be done automatically. You have to manually do it. But no, I mean, for backup, clearly there's a lot of great cloud-based services, but that's not terribly interesting.
But you're saying do both. So trust but verify.
Well, trust but verify, but that's just not. That's not terribly interesting. I mean, yeah, backup stuff, but look at the possibilities of what can happen when you have stuff in the cloud, whether it's your documents, your photos, your movies, your music. You get to a point then where you can aggregate and sort all of this stuff and share it. And so it's not just a matter of backing it up or having some kind of repository, but you can do so much more with it. And then, once you get to a good integrated world search engine like Crestron thinks it can patent, they just filed a patent application for universal search. Then the possibilities become endless, where you can go and search for Shrek, and it could be your nephew in a play about Shrek, or it could be prioritized based on the movie I have on my own hard drive versus what's available on Netflix or Amazon or any of that. So those are the possibilities.
All right, step back for a second because you said something interesting. Crestron filed a patent for universal search?
They did. So they started implementing. This has been a big problem with all the content. This has been a big problem in the past few years where, if you want to do a search for, again, I'll talk about Shrek. Ideally what you would want to do is type into an engine Shrek, and the first thing that you want to see would be a movie ripped to a local hard drive. Yeah. So that's free, and it's high def. So the secondary then might be something that you could rent for $2 or purchase or whatever. And so that's what Crestron implemented, first or not, or if it's patentable, who knows. But the concept is that a search engine would be able to prioritize based on cost and quality of service.
And also location, I'm assuming.
Well, that
where the media physically is located. In addition,
quality of service and cost. So if it's local, then it's there and it's free and it's high def. Then again, if we're talking about the cloud, I mean, you can see where the universal search functionality becomes so important.
Well, let me ask you guys a kind of a broader question. It may not be a conversation for this format. Are we going to get to a point where all of these different internet providers are going to start hitting us all with different charges? I know that I live in St. Louis. We have 2 or 3 different high-speed service providers. One is Charter. That's who I have. They don't have really a cap. But I know on both coasts, people who have Comcast, they do have caps. Is this both the storage in the cloud and the control in the cloud and the streaming in the cloud? Are we going to get to a point where we are not able to use these services because of these caps?
Well, I'll go ahead and chime in. And it's it's going to change all the time, and this is why
the services.
The services are going to change all the time. This is why we recommend working with a professional systems integrator, because you don't know, and the systems change. And my guess is that most people that are streaming Netflix and other services like this don't really realize what they're doing. and I can send you a link to my mother, who non-technical and who has no idea that I film her doing these things, but I do. That most people don't know that they're using bandwidth and that they may be charged for it.
Yeah.
And that that they're streaming something from the internet versus something at home. And so, I think this is for the people that are listening that are in this business, this is where the opportunity comes, where the professional integrator is the one that says, look, I'm in touch with all the service providers in your neighborhood. And Comcast, for example, in my case, they have just announced that in 2 months they're going to be shifting their charges to this, that, and the other. And so I recommend that you, upgrade to this service or drop this service or start using Redbox and drop Netflix. And it's going to be tricky, and it's not going to change anytime soon. It would be nice to have someone that you can rely on locally that can advise you on your streaming services, because it's not going to get any easier or cheaper.
All right, Craig, I'm going to ask probably a silly question, and I don't mean any disrespect to any integrator out there. All we're talking about is a freaking movie. Should it be this hard?
Doesn't seem that way, does it?
No.
No. Yeah, I don't know what the complication is, or what the why people are so concerned about it, that sort of thing. Like we've discussed already. I think people are already using the cloud, and they don't really even realize it. So I think it's a real good opportunity for integrators to step in and show people the way, and show people that that there's nothing to be afraid of. So
no, there's not, and that's the thing is you're right. Both of you are right. It's a good opportunity for integrators to kind of come in and be the hero. This next week we are recording on the 7th of October. Next week, Infocom is having another get together, as it were, in the Mideast, which I think is kind of cool. They're doing it at Dubai. I'd love to go. Anybody from Infocom wants to invite me? Whatever.
I've been there.
Have you?
Yeah, I have. CEA
nice?
had an event. It's weird.
It's weird.
It's just weird.
I just want to go to the islands. The pretty little man-made islands. So.
And it's just a weird place.
Well, here's the question to both of you. About a month ago, not even a month ago yet. Yeah, Cedia had their expo in Indianapolis 2 to 3 months ago. Infocom was in Orlando. Next week is the Infocom Mideast. In about a month, Infocom is going to have GovCom in DC. Are we kind of spreading ourselves out too thin here? And I'm probably going to ask a blasphemous question. Can't we just, take Cedia, take Infocom, and you know what? What the heck, since people are going to yell at me, let's take NAB and throw everybody together and have one big party in Vegas once a year? Or am I nuts?
I think that's an interesting idea. I'm not sure all these organizations would go for it, because then who makes the money off it, right? That probably is kind of what it comes down to.
I'll tell you who doesn't. I'll tell you who doesn't spend the money, and that's the integrators, and that's people like you guys and me and stuff like that. Who not that I don't mind business travel, I like it. I like seeing different places, but come on, how many booths does Extron or Crestron or AMX have to put up in a year?
Yeah, no, I think you're right about that, and I think it's probably going to take a couple of years of lackluster or low attendance for these organizations to realize that maybe there shouldn't be so many shows, and maybe they should do exactly what you said and have one big party in Vegas, which I'd be all for that.
Julie?
Yeah, it's tough. Well, we're in the trade show business. We actually never planned to get into it, but we're kind of forced into it because some competitors were doing it, and so we had to do it. And they all have their spots, and I like the niche shows. I mean, if there's going to be a government-centric infocom, then that can be pretty important. So it just depends how well they're done. But the exhibitors, they tell the story. If they continue to show up, then the show survives. If they don't, they don't. And
that's what I'm getting at. This year Infocom had an up year, but for a few years they had some down ones. This year CEDIA was down, not incredibly, but they were under 20,000 attendees. You take that and you throw that on top of Infocom's 30,000-ish attendees. You've got not even, that's 50,000 people in Vegas for one trade show, which is not a huge thing for Vegas. They can handle it. And I was going to be kind of being facetious with NAB, but those two at least, we're talking about, both of them are the AV industry. Whether they want to admit the other one is or not is irrelevant. They both deal in the AV industry, and you can tell that by the exhibitors. You have the same people in both places, I guess is what I'm going at.
Well, you have different divisions. I mean, Infocom and CEDIA and NAB are completely different events. I mean, CEDIA is 99.9% residential. Mm-hmm. Infocom is commercial. NAB is more, industry. It would be something that I would go do to write some great news stories. Yeah. I mean, that's where the cable guys go. So there's definitely places for all of them, and to be honest, I don't see a whole lot of overlap. Infocom and CEDIA have kind of a gentleman's agreement that Infocom will do commercial and CEDIA will do residential. There's the Electronic House Expo, which we produce, that is more intimate and completely focused on residential integration and new opportunities such as digital home health. And there's niches, and if they don't make it, they go away.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The like you were saying, Julie, the shows that aren't overly popular, they won't be there in 2 or 3 years anyway. So the ones that the people like obviously Infocom and CEDIA, those have been around for a while. Those obviously will be around for a while longer, but some of the other more niche shows are kind of hit or miss, I would say, and probably depends a lot on how much extra money people have to spend.
Yeah. All right. Well, there goes my big super party idea. So.
Well, I not to begrudge your super party idea. I mean, I'm all there.
Okay, is EH House the thing that you guys do, or Electronic House rather? Is EH Expo the only show you guys do?
All right. Actually, yes. Electronic House Expo, which we produce in conjunction with CEDIA, is in March in Florida, and it's a wonderful show. And like I said, intimate and very much focused on home systems integration. We also do. We have some other categories, such as the worship facilities market. So we produce the Worship Facilities Expo. We also have robotics expos. So we got a few crazy things going on, but our flagship is our Electronic House line with the Electronic House Expo in March. Again, produced with CEDIA.
Well, you mentioned something a few minutes ago about CEPro Live. What is that?
Oh, shoot! I'm going to get in such big trouble. Yeah, that is our virtual trade show, October 27th, and we have some seriously awesome. It's a really, really cool format. There's a handful of so-called exhibitors that, but it's really one big chat fest that goes on for about eight hours during the day, and some first ever keynote addresses. I'm doing one. We touched briefly on it about cloud-based home control and content and There's another excellent keynote from Jason Knott and my good friend Steve Moore in England, an integrator there, about new technologies. And, so there's some great keynote addresses and then some excellent, it's just kind of a big online chat fest. So it's a lot of fun.
So how do people get into it or get involved? Are you going to get in more trouble?
Thank you for asking. CEProLive.com.
CEProLive.com.
Oh, CEProLive.com. Oh no, the site is crashing.
I doubt that. Not yet.
No, it's fun. It's a very cool format.
And that's October 22nd, you said?
October 27th.
27th.
And then the keynote addresses, I'm just double checking the keynote addresses. October 27th is the event, and the addresses will be downloadable after that.
Oh,
so, it's fun. It's fun.
Well, I'm
actually think that
I would be there in my pajamas.
I actually think the online trade show is kind of becoming more popular and a more interesting way to go. Although it's a little tough to see new equipment and that sort of thing in that sort of format. So.
Well, I would say that it is because you can't put your hands on it and you can't see how it works.
Right.
But I've gotten myself in trouble by commenting about vaporware and so I have my own issues with trade shows and what goes on.
Yeah, you know what? It's a place to the online chat show, the online trade shows. I think are it's a community, it's a gathering, and you have your emoticon and your you chat with your peers and people that you've always chatted with online, and certainly all our editors will be there as well as editors of other magazines, and it's just kind of a day of CEPro celebration.
In our pajamas.
Well, I will be. I can't speak for Craig.
Well, if you're in your pajamas, I'll be in my pajamas, and we'll have.
I'll be there.
So.
Yep.
Speaking of Craig, he wrote 2 stories that we're doing this week, just because I have a thing with lead and step. Step, Craig, take us through this real quick. What is step, and then I'm going to hammer you with a bunch of questions.
Boy, step is a new foundation that Infocom, CompTIA, and a couple other organizations are launching, unveiling over the next few weeks, and it's essentially a way for integrators to get involved in sustainability and actually get credit for it, which is something that they've had a real difficult time doing through LEAD. Mm-hmm. Apparently, through LEAD, you're not even guaranteed to get an AV credit without you have to apply for it through something called the Innovative Credit, and it's not always a guarantee. So there was a lot of frustration among integrators and folks from Infocom about the idea of pushing people for sustainability and encouraging them to do it. And so this foundation is kind of it's pretty much brand new and hasn't even officially been launched yet, but it is starting to get some traction and working on some pilot projects already.
Well, it's something they've been talking about for a while, and it kind of goes back to something that we talked about last week with Don Mead. That is a lack of understanding and a lack of knowledge and awareness of the AV industry when it comes to, let's say, general contractors or the architect industry, because you've got this LEAD thing, and yes, it's great, and yes, it's great for sustainability. But what you just talked about and the quote unquote points that we can get as an industry are almost the equivalent of the master plan from the 90s, where we had to live under the electrician's code and the electrician's filing cabinet.
Right, and it's a maximum of 1 point through the innovative credit on LEAD, and for STEP, I believe it's 180 points is the maximum you can get. So obviously it's something that I think it's going to take a little bit of salesmanship on Infocom and CompTIA's part to get people to understand what it's all about. But it sounds like they're pretty confident that it'll work and that it'll be much more attractive than LEED was for them. I guess the last straw was they went to the USGBC to try to get the green AV credit and have it be a formalized thing. We're told to come back in 2013 and that maybe they'd consider it then. So they decided to do it on their own, and it's I think it's a real interesting idea. I've talked to people from kind of all angles of it, and they're obviously pretty excited about it.
Yeah, fortunately, I mean, the best news for us is we get no money from any of those certification organizations, so we can make all the fun of them that we want. They're completely ridiculous and politically motivated, and I mean, we've reported in the past, for example, that a tree gets you more lead points than $100,000 lighting control system. I mean, it's the silliest thing, and we even started a. I'm sorry, are your sponsors LEED?
Who, me?
Yeah,
I'm my own sponsor. I'm not LEED.
I'll back off if you want. No, it's just the silliest, most politically motivated thing I've ever seen. And we even started, we started a series of a home consumer that was building a home that was LEED certified, and we were all asking, well, why? I mean, who cares? I mean, build a home that will, meet your political or environmental motives and your concerns about energy savings, and who cares what whose seal of approval it is? I mean, I've talked to so many bankrupt homeowners who built a LEED home, and we're like,
jeez.
Right. That was actually something that came up in one of the conversations, is that LEED is starting to generate a lot of lawsuits towards the USGBC because the homes and offices are not performing the way that they were supposed to, and so the people want their money back, basically.
Well, and
it's just
go ahead.
dim your lights down to 80%, and you'll save a lot of money. That it's as simple as that.
Well, and I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not political, because it very well could be. I'm not going to say that LEED or STEP is the end-all to be-all. My, I guess, love affair with control and this whole idea, it comes from the fact that, I volunteer at my church. I deal with educational institutions all day. If you put in a good, solid control system with occupancy sensors and some good logic, you can first of all pay for that system and then start making money, regardless of if it's LEED or STEP.
Amen, brother.
There's my soapbox. So,
and one of the other distinctions between LEED and STEP that I thought was interesting is that when you get LEED certification, it's based on the building when it's built, and for STEP, they're looking kind of deeper into the future and kind of basing it on future performance of the system and that sort of thing. So
yeah, but that's kind of sketchy and fuzzy math too. I mean, isn't it? I mean, because you're kind of projecting down the line what it should be.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Of course.
Of course.
Of course it is.
Give me credit for what it does. Give me credit for what it does today.
Well, what do you need credit for?
Well, if you want the pretty sticker.
Build a home that is that saves you money, and save your money yourself.
But
who do you need credits for?
If you want the pretty sticker that says LEED.
secretary in here. So.
Oh, goodness. All right. Let's move on.
Tag.
I'm going to get you in trouble again. So, this comes from your own staff. 50% of consumers shop online for electronics.
I appreciate that. I appreciate my last performance.
No, it's not. You have a show coming up in a couple weeks. I'll invite you again. Whether you're, here's the thing. And somebody, both of you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. This is my perception. In the world of residential, this is kind of how I view things. A lot of what is put into a residential system is what could be described as consumer electronics. DVD players, streaming services, stuff like that, displays, TVs. Not to say that a Crestron system or an AMX control system or a Savant control system is consumer electronics, but the stuff that it controls is. Is that fair to say?
Mm-hmm.
So that being the case, isn't it interesting that half of what these integrators are dealing with, these guys are shopping for online, and in a lot of cases, they're buying online? Or is this just kind of a commoditization of stuff, and we're going to have to make margins and money elsewhere?
Me?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, I mean, this is, under the headline of, no surprises here. Of course, people are buying consumer electronics online. And the big debate in our community, in the professional installation community, is should custom electronic integrators actually sell TVs, or a lot of them say, go buy your frickin' TV at Best Buy, whatever. They'll be liable for repairs and delivery and all that. And then we tack on $500 to integrate it into our system. And so, I mean, there's no answer there. If we're talking to the trade audience, the question is, how do you work with that? And so how do you deal with that population of people like myself that buys big screen TVs online? So I spent maybe tens of thousands of dollars for a home systems integration system, yet I bought a TV online. And
how did that make you feel, Julie?
Well, I felt fine about it, but the community did not feel so fine about it, and I still get crap to this day.
Why, though?
Buying a TV online. Well,
and maybe I'll get crap
because
now.
I'm supposed to be the spokesperson for the industry, but
you were supposed to be the light in the darkness.
Right, but really what I wanted was a cheap TV. And no hassle.
Yeah.
And I still do get crap about that. But while I'll skimp on a big screen TV, I'm not going to skimp on professional installation and integration and remote control programming and that kind of thing. And so it's a matter of our industry to figure out who. And I'm a high-end client, and integrators need to understand how to deal with people like me that will buy a TV online but won't skimp on integration and programming. Yeah. And that's what we as an industry need to do.
Well, Craig, the same thing for commercial, though. You have guys who, whether it's the IT department that is over AV, or you have a separate AV guy that's kind of what he does. He still has a bottom line. He has a budget every year. Not that Julie doesn't, or homeowners don't, but he has a budget every year, and he has X amount of dollars to get X amount of things done. So, is it a huge deal, or should it be a huge deal that these guys can get, a dozen TVs from Best Buy or Amazon or wherever for the same price that you're selling it to them for one or two?
Yeah, I can see where it's obviously a controversial thing because, I mean, if you have the best integrator in the world and he's putting in a crappy TV, then it's still going to be a crappy TV. So, I mean, if you buy a TV online, and if it's a cheap TV, I mean, the best programming in the world isn't going to help it.
Well, it's not, but doesn't that kind of come back on the consumer? I mean, Julie is a high end client. She is,
right.
So she understands because she is intelligent enough to have shopped online and intelligent enough to have purchased this thing online. She gets it. This is her baby. She bought this sucker, whether or not she had, and then she paid somebody else to install it. Or are people kind of forgetful once the system's done and they just kind of see commercial integrators as, well, you put the whole system in, so the whole system's yours?
Yeah, I think people are pretty slow to blame themselves for almost anything these days. So if they can find fault with somebody else, they're going to. And I'm sure these guys get calls all the time from people that bought their TVs online and didn't realize what the TVs they were getting were not necessarily all that great, and then they had an installer put them in, and they're surprised that it doesn't work 6 months later or a year later. So.
Or even immediately when you plug it in.
Exactly.
Again, I mean, it's just how you structure your business, and you need to be aware of the new consumer versus if it's just a person like myself, or whether it's a big industrial buyer that's buying tons and tons and tons of TVs, and you need to structure your business accordingly and structure it to make money off these installations and these sales. For example, so I bought a Mitsubishi DLP TV online a few years ago, and it started to go dim 6 months ago. And, I finally bought a replacement lamp. But these are the things that integrators can do. All right, so you bought this TV online. I'm your guy. I'm checking in a year later. Is your TV dim? Is it dimming? Okay, let me take a look at it. Oh, you know what? With a $200 Presto Changeo, I can make it all bright again, which it does. It's like blam, like that. And so it's just you have to, you have to adjust to the new business model, and you have to make money, and you have to be a customer service person, like any business.
Well, you do. You have to not reinvent yourself, but adjust and kind of be very flexible, because we've been talking about this ad nauseum for years. The industry is changing, and so we have to change along with it, or you go out of business. I mean, those are kind of the two options you're left with. So, all right, last story. This is kind of my 1984 moment. It's called the Urban OS. And this is it in a nutshell. It is an operating system for your town, meaning that this sucker controls and gets sensors from all over the place, including businesses and ostensibly even people's homes, to where if there's a fire in a building 3 stories up, it will turn all of the stoplights green between the fire station and the building. It will suck all the air out of the room. It will pull everybody out of the building. It will even shut off the water supply to all of the homes and businesses surrounding the place that's on fire, so the fire department has enough water. Julie, is this a good idea, or is this just kind of Big Brother sneaking in the back door?
No, of course it's a great idea. The whole thing
Really?
about, of course, the whole thing about too much oversight is silly. I mean, it's just a matter of how it's being used. I mean, it has to be used correctly and responsibly. And how is it not a bad thing that this technology can save a community money and enhance security and safety and convenience and energy savings? I mean, it's just has to be deployed responsibly. That's all.
Is it still a good idea if it's in people's houses?
Well, of course, so my husband's out of town right now, and we have interior security cameras, and I always turn them over when he's away.
You do what now?
I turn him over when he's away.
So he can't spy on you? Is that the deal?
I don't know. I don't think he's ever looked at them in 2 years, but it just gives me the heebie-jeebies.
You
So
do like
yeah,
the party, don't you?
I turn the camera over. But no, how can it not be a bad? How can the capability be a bad thing? It's a good thing if it's deployed responsibly. And obviously there's a lot of parameters on that, but no, technology is a good thing. And when we stretch our capabilities and our opportunities, it's a good thing.
I actually agree with her completely on this. I mean, it's kind of a matter of time before we see it. I think obviously it's overseas right now, but I think if it works well in England and Britain, I think it's coming here.
So we're all going to be living under the watchful eye of Big Brother. Yay!
Well, not me. Not me.
Probably already are.
Yeah, not you, because you're going to turn the security cameras around.
I do. I just turned it around yesterday.
All right, that's all I've got. You guys have anything else?
No, I sure appreciate the opportunity.
Tell Julie, real quick, talk to us again about CEPro Live. When is it, and how people can get involved?
Thank you for that opportunity. CEPro Live is October 27th. Free registration. CEProLive.com. There's a handful of exhibitors. Virtual exhibitors, but also just basically 8 hours of chat and keynote addresses on home systems integration. The two big keynotes are one that I'm doing on cloud-based services and control, and also new home technologies with Jason Knott and Steve Moore from England, and it's co-produced by CEDIA. So,
how does the virtual thing work? The virtual booth, basically.
You just go. You see, it's cool. I mean, seriously, it's really cool. Just go to CEProLive.com, register, and I mean, I don't know how to explain it. It's cool.
Well, the chat I get, and listening to you talk I get, but it's the whole virtual booth tour.
Yeah, well, you'll see. You'll see. And I'll be there. I'll be there.
If you'll be there in your pajamas, I'll be there.
In my pajamas.
Hot dog. That, by the way, is Julie Jacobson. She is the co-founder of VH Publishing, as well as an editor of CEPro. Mr. Craig MacCormack not only is a disgruntled Boston Red Sox fan, but he's also a senior writer with the Commercial Integrator magazine. Thank you both for joining us. My name is Tom Albright. Check out AVNation.tv for more stuff and information. We appreciate you listening, and we appreciate the feedback. It's all the time we have for AV Week.